Planet Vero Studio is powered by the Nolan Group of RE/MAX Associated Realty. MyNextHomeFinder.com.
Welcome to Treasure Coast Community Health. We have 8 locations to serve you better. Our staff is dedicated to help you and your family. Here's your host, Vicki Soulé.
And welcome to Community Conversations. I hope you're having a wonderful Saturday as you hear this play over your radio. And for those of you that are seeing it on our Facebook account, I hope that you'll share it. This is a program where I often am able, most of the time, I'm able to draw a direct correlation between our guest and health in general, or very specifically for that matter. But I have no direct connection with Ruth other than Ruth Stanbridge, our county historian, makes me always feel good about what I've learned, what we share, what we learn from about our history, the wonderful things that have gone on in the very place that we live now. So welcome, Ruth.
Thank you. Good to be here.
You never keep us at a loss for words. And even walking in the door, we were talking about so many different things that connect us to this place. Not the least of which, as we figured out, is the road signs and the differences that we saw here perhaps 20 or 30 years ago with individual north-south roads having a name as opposed to a number. So I really remember Kings Highway and Emerson, but there were a whole lot of others before this renaming happened through the post office. What are the ones that you remember the most?
Well, most roads were named for people on the roads, and all those people have stories. So when you think of a road and a name, you think of a story. And 43rd Avenue, Clemens Avenue, was named for the Clemens family that lived just south of what is now State Road 60. And by the way...
Were they the ones that were in the fruit business?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Fruit business. Way back when.
Way back when.
And by the way, the State Road 60 had several names. It first started out as Osceola Boulevard in the little tiny community called Vero, no beach. This is before 25. And the plat for Vero was 1913, and each road, north and south, had an Indian name because it was being developed by Indian River Farms. So way back then, in the teens, they were still branding their product and producing these Indian names for their roads. And we have a really nice old plat that we copy out for people. And oftentimes we'll have someone that has just moved to 15th Avenue, downtown Vero Beach, and they want to know what the Indian name was. They're hoping it's Kickapoo, but it's not Kick. I can't name them off as they go, but we all know Seminole, which is 14th, and then 15th is next, 16th, and so forth, all the way out to the Catholic Church, and 20th out there is Ute Pass.
And that is because of the Seminole and Osceola Indian settlements that were originally here?
No, Indian River Farms was the name of the development, 55,000 acres. So when they divided off the land and gridded it and everything, they also did a town. There was no town of Vero. There was the post office and Henry Flagler's house, but there was no town. And so they decided they needed a little town for their big community, their big land development. And so when they drew up the plat, they put the Indian names going north and south and named after the tribes through 90 states. So, and of course they chose Seminole for 14th, which is Main Street, and Osceola Boulevard, which is the east-west corridor, which became eventually State Road 60.
Well, now, when they were developing Vero, we were fortunate enough recently to have a little downtown tour of what was. And I understand that bringing people in from the north to check us out and perhaps buy some land, stay at the hotels that were in downtown Vero, was all the thing to do coming down on Flagler's little train there.
And that's one reason they named those Indian names. It was enticing for people to come and see this place with these Indian names. And they usually they stayed at the Sleepy Eye Lodge, which was right there at the corner of 21st and 14th.
Mm-hmm.
Later, the Del Mar was built there. In fact, I was in college when they finally tore the Del Mar down, and it was a 20s.
Wow.
And it was, massive, we thought. And for downtown, it was very massive.
Well, that big blue building, apparently, that has recently been renovated. It wasn't blue right there on that opposite corner. Okay. I was really surprised at how old that building is and the various uses that
was the Farmers Bank.
Yeah.
And of course, the theater there. Mm-hmm. It has quite a story. All those buildings have stories that go with them. At the Sleepy Eye Lodge, when they ran out of room in the lodge from all these folks that they were enticing to come down and buy land, they pitched tents in the backyard. And so the people could sleep in the tents and then go out in the ox carts or very few autos, and see this land, which is probably mostly underwater. Out where we live, I live out on 66, which is Lateral A, which was the last lateral ditch trying to drain this 55,000 acres.
Well, I understand that attracted quite a few investors who envisioned that land after the drainage happened and bought it really for a song, and then were able, after the canals were set in, to sell it at a very nice profit.
Oh, yes, and they attracted from the Midwest, and that's interesting because everyone thinks that, everybody came from the Northeast, but they came from the Iowa and Chicago area, and they rounded up the folks out there because they were looking for more land. They had already developed that land out there as farms, and now they wanted more land, cheap land, and so Florida was the place to go.
And so when did we start seeing the citrus fields developed here? Did that go back into the 20s and 30s as well?
Oh, before that.
Okay.
On the Barrier Island, on the Orchid Island, Captain Frank Forster settled over there right after the Second Seminole War, which was in the 1850s. And he started growing citrus from the Drummond Grove, which was up off the Cape Canaveral area.
Wow.
And that was a tropic fruit that was, along with the pineapples, that was needed in the northern markets. So he had a good thing going there with the pineapples. They always say the pineapples take so long to grow, you could starve to death before you got your crop in. So they would plant. In fact, we have photos from the Hallstrom farmstead where you have pineapples growing between the young groves of citrus that had been set out. So they were hanging on to the pineapple, but they were growing that citrus as fast as they could.
Now, the Hallstrom house is, in my thinking, because it's south of 20 or US 60, that's a little bit southern. But that, they were giving tours right up until COVID. Has that opened back up yet?
Both of our museums, our Railroad Museum, our Exhibit Center, and our Hallstrom House, which is our house museum, are still closed. We debated beginning of this season, back in September, but it was just too iffy.
Yeah.
And you hate to have your volunteers come in, and most of us are older, and they were a little reluctant. So we decided, no, we'll just sit it out. We'll just wait a little while longer. And, of course, we have our historical documentaries, our little videos that we encourage everybody to watch when they're having to stay at home.
Which are very interesting.
We have about 10 or 12 of those now, and we have 3 in the editing stage.
Oh.
And because of COVID, we were not able to go out and interview like we wanted to. We have one that I think is going to be really good. It's called Cowmen. It's 2 parts. And Florida, and even today, has a good beef industry with their cattle. But back in the day, that was the place. And and the cattle just roamed free all over the state.
Sometimes I wonder if they still don't. If I go up by 510 and 512, it's like, look, there's cows out there again, right next to the high school.
Yes, in fact, one of our generations of cowmen, they were not called cowboys, they were cowmen in Florida. She has her herd in that pasture, and we interviewed she and her. She's a third generation alive, but she's a fourth or fifth generation that raise cattle.
And thank heavens they still do.
And they've got room to raise the cattle.
Yeah.
And but we are going to continue with that series now that COVID is hopefully on the wane, and we have we're going to be going out to the cow pens at Sexton's Ranch, Treasure Hammock Ranch, and interview Sean about his family. And we also have a couple of others. Carol Johnson, who was our school board member for so many years, she comes from the Platt family, which was over in Fort Drum and Bassinger and all like that. So she's going to come off and tell about her family and the cattle business. And I'm hoping to have Wesley Davis come and his family, the Davis family of the Wabassa area. His great-great-grandfather, I hope I get this right, Wesley will tell me about it. But I want him to tell about his great-grandfather, who was a plume hunter in the Everglades. And that's how he got the money to buy his acreage up here for his cattle and eventually the dairy, the Davis Dairy.
Now he'd have to be a snake hunter down there, wouldn't he?
Yeah, now he would have to be.
Instead of a plume hunter.
Yeah, but that was when, it wasn't illegal. And, you made a good profit. And so
all the women were still wearing wonderful hats.
If you could take those, the conditions in the Everglades.
Which were tough then.
Yeah. Can you imagine? I think that's why
bugs.
That's why I like roads, because when you think about the roads, you can just imagine no roads.
Yeah.
And then somebody found a trail, and then they made it a little wider, and eventually it ends up being our King's Highway.
Exactly. So help me connect the dots then with the monuments or the markers for these roads. Some of them have them, some of them don't. Is there a process to recognize some of these earliest roads or areas?
Well, and it's left up. The state of Florida is the one who authorizes the final marker, and it's up to the local group, families,
societies, government, to petition for it.
And you have to provide all the information, and you have to be spot on, because you have a review board up there, and they will not let you put anything on that marker that's not. I've heard some real dillies.
I'll bet. That
was in Tallahassee, and we had one time the FEC was wanting to do one for the Port of Miami, and one of the reviewers said, "Why would you want to do one for the Port of?" Well, they're having shipping coming in, so they want to use it as part of their advertisement. And you
interesting.
Can see that went nowhere.
Yeah. Ruth, we're going to have to take a short break to have a word from our sponsors, and then we'll come back and we'll talk more about this lovely area that we live in and its history. Hi, I'm Vicki Soule, CEO of Treasure Coast Community Health. Indian River County is one of the top 10 richest counties in Florida. Yet, half of our families are underserved in medical, dental, and behavioral health care. TCCH, a nonprofit, believes in health care for all. Children need well checks, women need mammograms, men need annual physicals. Please consider partnering with TCCH to help meet the needs of our community. 100% of your gifts stay here. To donate, visit tcchinc.org.
The Tommy Bahama brand is legendary for its sophisticated interpretation of inspired island living. Right now at Sunshine Furniture, you save another 10% on all Tommy Bahama home and Lexington furniture during our Home for the Holidays event. Experience the casual comfort of the islands with designs made of exotic natural materials and rich finishes. We invite you to make life one long weekend with the cool and casual style of Tommy Bahama. At Sunshine Furniture, our showroom is filled with the largest selection of coastal indoor dining and bedroom sets, sofas, sleeper sofas, recliners, and slipcover groups by Four Seasons, Capri, Classic Rattan, Universal, and Hooker, all in stock for immediate delivery. Visit our website at sunshinefurniturecasual.com and don't forget our outlet and sales store directly across the street. Sunshine Furniture, 1295 US 1 in the Publix Plaza next to Planet Fitness in Vero Beach. Visit our website at sunshinefurniturecasual.com.
You can trust Sandpiper Pest Control, serving Indian River, St. Lucie, and Brevard. Certified by the state of Florida to treat homes, lawns, and termites. Fully licensed and insured. Priced right, effective, and friendly.
Hi, this is Joel, the owner of Sandpiper Pest Control. Sandpiper can solve your pest issues. No contracts to sign, just results.
Call for a free estimate, 772-589-0204. Sandpiper Pest Control, a member of the iTex trading community. Your iTex dollars are welcome.
And welcome back to Community Health CEO, which means that I have the pleasure of a great staff seeing about 25 or 26,000 of our residents every year come through our doors for health care. And nothing pleases me more than to be able to solve a problem of no transportation or not enough money, or I really don't know what to do about my relative's situation health-wise. So we have great staff that will help you do that. We have health navigators that will solve some of your financial problems and talk with you for free. And if you ever need any advice, call us at 257-8224. Oftentimes, I will ask guests to come on board that are related in some way, shape, or form to health. In this case, with Ruth Stanbridge, our county historian, I am just pleased that we're able to connect the dots between what was, what will be, and looking forward then into tomorrow, and the things that have changed and the things that we're hanging on to so they don't change as much. And monuments come into play. We talked a little bit about roads and east, west, north, south, naming them for Indians because that attracted people into our small town of Vero back in the 20s. But things have a way of changing so quickly that the monuments and the recognition process, you've got a couple in the queue right now, don't you, Ruth?
Yes, we do. And one of the reasons we do is because of COVID. So while we were all having to stay close, we got busy and we decided we would do these historical markers and have them ready. So once we could go out, everybody wanted to go out, and we would have these markers ready to be unveiled at their designated spots.
And so what kinds of, can you give us an example of one of the three? What's it about?
Well, we had one not too long ago. In fact, that was our first venture at the Hosey Schumann Park, which is in Gifford, just in the edge of Gifford. It's just one tiny block off of US 1 at 39th Street to the east, and it was where the first black school was located. The marker can only have 1,235 characters, not words, characters. So you've got to be very, very tight with what you say. And when you have one of these wonderful old places, it's really, really difficult to get it all in. But we did the marker. It came in. The Parks Department for the county accepts those markers, and then they actually put them up for us, which they don't really have to. But it is a benefit to the county and to the community and the citizens. So they're very generous about that. But that day we had, we thought we'd have 25 people there. It was Juneteenth in the Gifford area, so there was going to be a big celebration at another park.
Another park.
Well, then we decided we were going to have 25 more chairs. And we ended up with well over 100 people at that one little marker ceremony.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And we thought we would just have some of the alumni from that first school, which was a one-room schoolhouse that actually had 7 rooms in it. And they went from elementary all the way through high school. And some of our prominent Black community leaders graduated from it. Dr. Hudson.
Really?
Oh, yes, we had a number of them there. And the audience told me later they could have stayed all afternoon because they would tell stories, that unbelievable stories of how they used to practice football by tying pillows to posts or trees and using that as their tackle. They had no equipment. They had leftover things. They had old books and all, but they got through it. They came out the other end doing really well. But that was just one of the markers. But we have 3 now in the works. We have one for A.B. Michael Bridge, which is the Wabassa Bridge. And it was just recently renamed after 20-something years. And that's a story in itself, because when it was so supposedly named after the Michael, A.B. Michael of the Michael family in Wabassa, when it went to Tallahassee to be approved, they misspelled his name and made it Mitchell. The local county attorney was a Mitchell. So instead of putting anything up at that bridge, and especially a historical marker, they didn't put anything. They just called it the Wabassa Bridge.
And that's the way I've always known it. Yep.
And so here we are 30 years later, 25 or 30 years later, we're going to correct that with that. They did put, the DOT put their signs up for A.B. Michael, but we're putting a historical marker there so everybody will know.
So when these markers are going to be placed, you do radio and print advertisements. So we need to stay tuned and watch for these things.
In fact, we just had to cancel a dedication on this past Saturday because we had some of our older people that we want to be there were not well. So we decided, and it was going to be a nasty day. So we decided we would just do it later, and we hadn't started any PR on it. But that's at the Winter Beach Cemetery, which is one of the oldest cemeteries in the county. And a lot of the early settlers that came along the river were buried in that cemetery. So it has quite a history. Little Winter Beach has had 3 names. It was first called Woodley, then it was called Quay. I don't know why anybody would call it
But there's still some signs that say Quay in that area.
Because it's still on
Quay
maps.
Road?
Yeah, Quay
Road.
Dock Road, the dock. Quay Dock was there. When the bridge was put across, the wooden bridge, which is no more, it was the Quay Winter Beach Bridge, so it was halfway between. There's even an old road that went from Quay diagonally across to Fort Drum.
Oh.
And it met at Fort Benton, which was another Seminole War fort that's in the middle of Orange Groves, or used to be Orange Groves, south of State Road 60. So I have always enjoyed tracing these roads because it's amazing what our early settlers went through to get here.
Isn't it something? You have written some articles for the newspaper and explained how some of this has happened. And, all of a sudden it was a light bulb. Fort Pierce really was a fort in 100 years ago. And, that's not all that long in the genesis of time, but how far we've come.
And these people found these places without satellites or anything else.
So true. Well, Ruth, as always, it's been a real pleasure. I hope that we can have you back again and again and again, because you're just a wealth of information. And it's important for us to be able to hear it, share it with our children and our grandchildren, to keep these things alive. And so thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for hanging on to the very end with us again. I hope that you found this as pleasurable as I always do. And we'll be back next week with another guest. Take care and have a great evening.